Absolutely, but let's now speak to the former Conservative MP, Sir Michael Fabricant. So, Michael, thanks indeed for joining us today. I mean, an extraordinary story, important to stress again just how unusual this is.
Yes. In fact, the first time that this ever happened and the last time it ever happened that the brother of a king was arrested was Richard, Duke of Gloucester, back in 1470. So what has happened today isn't unprecedented, but boy, it's been some 600 years since this sort of thing has happened before.
And I noticed, Sir Michael, that you put out a statement on Twitter that you actually felt sorry for the king. Tell us a bit more about how you feel about this will affect the family.
Well, the king knew he had a hard act to follow, following on from the late Queen Elizabeth II. And yet the whole part of his reign, you could say, has been tarnished through no fault of his own, because I think the king has behaved with honour and dignity and decency for all of his relatively short reign. And yet the whole period that he's been king has been covered with this whole issue of Prince Andrew, both with the Epstein affair and also with this affair, which of course involves Epstein, which is the possibility of him being charged. And remember, he's not yet being charged yet with a criminal offence for the issue of giving information which he was privy to Epstein. I think it's fascinating that when and if he is charged, it'll be the Crown Prosecution Service that will then go forward with a trial. And once, if he is found guilty, so there's 2 steps to go yet. He's got to be charged, and then he might have to be found guilty. It will again be the Crown versus Prince or the former Prince Andrew. The key point, I think, which comes out of all of this is how the king should distance himself and let the progress take its course and ensure that in no way are the forces of law and order impeded. But, you know, at the same time, he does want to comment simply because it is the wish of the British people that the king be seen to speak, but he can't interfere. The Thames Valley Police have actually put out a statement saying that it's important that people don't comment about this possible trial. And as I say, he's not been charged yet, so we're nowhere near a trial. Because that could interfere with whether he gets a fair trial, and presumably it will be a trial with jury, despite what David Lamb is trying to do to get rid of a jury. And the fascination as well across the whole world. I mean, the New York Times is now splashing with this whole story. The king, as you've just been stating, has given out a statement, which in itself is unprecedented. And I just feel that His Majesty must be thinking, my God, when will we be clear of all this? And I don't think we will be clear of this until either it's decided that there isn't enough evidence to charge Prince Andrew, or if he is charged, the trial itself could take many, many months. It could be a year before it even begins to go to trial. And as Cameron was saying earlier, this gives some weaponry, if you like, to those Republicans who are a minority in this country, who want to see the king and all the royal family deposed and a Republican state established instead, all because of the avarice of this one man, Andrew. And further, by the way, if he is found guilty, but I don't think it should be before, the king, I think, should ask the Prime Minister, whoever it is at that time, that legislation be passed to A, stop him from being the Duke of York. He doesn't use the title, the Duke of York, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, but he is still technically Duke of York, and he is still technically 8th in line to the throne. And that, as Cameron again said that a bit earlier on, that will need parliamentary legislation. But I don't think that should happen, and here I disagree with Cameron. I don't think it should be happen until he's found guilty, because you know what? In this country, you are innocent until you are found guilty in a court of law.
A really important point there. And Michael, you say that Republicans will feel emboldened by this news. And yet, to some extent, does this not undermine the Republican argument? Because we are learning today in glorious technicolor that no one is above the law. We are seeing images of the man that is eighth in line to the throne being arrested, driven away by the police for questioning, his home being searched, his former home, by the sounds of it, being searched as well. No one's above the law.
Yes, and remarkably, we found out only a few minutes ago that the head of state, the king, did not know that the police were going to go and arrest Andrew this morning. And that does surprise me because, as we've said earlier on, all the procedures in this country is the king, the crown, versus the person who is up for trial, in this case, possibly Andrew, if he is charged. And by the way, the charging process could take many months. We've already heard, of course, that the police are at, and they will still be at the home on Sandringham looking for evidence. They are at another home in Berkshire, presumably on the Windsor estate. Probably, we don't know, probably Andrew's former home, looking for evidence. It could be months before he is charged, let alone go to trial. So this is going to be a long, long process. And I was so pleased earlier on when Cameron pointed out that it is just one man. One man. He did it here at Lichfield Cathedral, where I am now, just a few hundred yards from the cathedral. It was just one man who constantly challenges the king and says, what have you got to say about the Epstein affair? I think the majority of the country recognise that the king is a decent man doing his best to serve our nation.
So, Michael, because many people are commenting already, surely the royal family must have known that there was something very wrong about Andrew's behaviour, and we know he is a proven liar about his relationship with Epstein. Lots of people don't have any sympathy for the royal family in this. They say they must have known.
Well, I'm sure there'll be opinion polling about this, and I'd be very interested to see, actually, how people do feel about this. But must they have known? You know, Prince Andrew and the King were estranged to some extent. Certainly Andrew and William are very estranged. I don't think they talk much together at all. They appeared together in the past at functions, but you don't see them chatting away happily and exchanging gossip. So actually, I tend to assume that the king doesn't actually know the extent of Andrew's avarice, and that's the only word I can use. I mean, I've met Andrew on a couple of occasions, and the first time I met him, I thought he was a very interesting and charming guy. It's such a shame that as he grew older, exposed to people like Epstein, he sort of felt, you know, I want to have the same sort of money, the same sort of lifestyle as indeed Epstein and other multi-billionaires enjoy. And it's very similar, in fact, to Mandelson. These people who can never have enough money. And that's been the problem, the downfall, if you like, of the former Prince Andrew.
Yeah, and you see that time and time again. The kind of people, of course, before Epstein's arrest, before 2008, there are lots of billionaires in the emails, in the files. There are lots of very important, very wealthy people who are emailing him, talking to him, because that's what you do in those circles. Interestingly, after his arrest, who are the people that appear most in the files? It's not other billionaires. It's the people who want to be close to the billionaires, and perhaps the people like the Mandelsons, like the Andrew Mountbatten Windsors, like the Sarah Fergusons of this world, who feel like the only way they can get close to power is to get close to a disgraced billionaire. That way they become closer friends with extreme wealth.
So, Michael, can I just ask one quick question before you go? You sounded almost a little bit sympathetic towards Andrew then, the fact that he was almost taken in by the wealth and the power of, you know, the rich, as Tom's just alluded to, the rich billionaires. So you almost sound like you had a little bit of sympathy for him being taken in. Is that the case?
No, I wouldn't say sympathy. I sort of empathise with him. I know people who are a little bit like him, like the Mandelsons of this world, who want to acquire the lifestyle of those people who they can't really compete with. So I have an understanding. I don't have any sympathy at all. The person I have sympathy with is His Majesty the King, who, you know, as I say, probably feels that his reign is being tainted by this whole affair, an affair over which he's had no control. And despite the suspicions of others, I suspect he had no idea of the involvement of Prince Andrew with either Epstein or what he got up to or not got up to with Epstein, let alone giving away, as he has been accused of. We don't know, as I say, whether, you know, it's definitely the case. He has not been charged. Whether he gave away information, secret information, to Epstein in order to ingratiate himself with him. It's all rather pathetic, actually, and very sad for the royal family that this one rotten apple has tarnished the reputation of the head of state of our nation. And boy, I tell you one thing, I'd rather have the king as head of state than Keir Starmer, or indeed any prime minister.